Greetings to all the amazing people watching and listening to this. Welcome to CHEZUBA Talks, a podcast dedicated to sharing compelling stories of hope, determination, and humanity. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful discovery of the human spirit. I'm Tej, your host, and with me today is Professor Dave White, a celebrated chemical engineer from Portland, Oregon. Dave is a chemical engineer with graduate studies in statistics, currently working on climate change. He has 30 years' experience promoting responsibility to environment and health of all species. Dave White's research interests are evaporation from the ocean, rainforest destruction effects on atmospheric CO2 rise, and diffusion of carbon dioxide through the atmosphere. Welcome, Professor Dave.
Thank you so much for those kind words.
Professor Dave, greenhouse gas concentrations are at the highest levels in 2 million years. We can pay the bill now or pay dearly in the future, is what is said. What is your take on this and why?
Okay. Two things about greenhouse gases. One is for carbon dioxide. If you want to lower carbon dioxide quickly, if everyone in the world plants 3 native shrubs and trees per year, carbon dioxide will be 330 parts per million by 2031. That's the fastest and only way to lower carbon dioxide. And on cctruth.org, you'll see how 30 billion trees planted in the last 7 years are already lowering atmospheric CO2. Now, the second thing about greenhouse gases is they're not the cause of the warming. The main reason that I want to see trees planted is to get back our oxygen production. Not only has carbon dioxide
Right.
increased, but also oxygen level has decreased. And the reason why carbon dioxide has increased is a 97% reduction in photosynthesis worldwide. And you can see that on cctruth.org. We published the only manuscript to calculate net zero CO2 emissions or equilibrium for carbon dioxide. And since we're at 35, 36 billion tons right now for emissions, we only have 8.6 billion tons of photosynthesis left in the world. And this is why carbon dioxide has been increasing, has nothing to do with what the United Nations and the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports have been saying for 30 years. They've been, and they are just flat out lying. So I'll talk about that for a minute. We have 30 scientific PhDs. We participate in the expert and government review program for the
Mhm.
global change group of the National Academy of Sciences in the United States. And Dr. His name, the head person of that group in 2019 asked me to form a team to review their reports. And soon that team became what it is today. And we review them. We find all kinds of garbage in them. Basically, they published worthless, loosely referenced manuscripts in Nature Climate Change journal when that journal's chief editor had a PhD in political science. He was
Mhm.
letting them publish absolute garbage manuscripts and circular reference them in their reports, which any scientist knows is not science. And when we found that more than 60% of their references were to that journal, and we looked it up and found this guy's PhD, we notified their board, and that was in June of 2020. They fired him the next day. But the kind of stuff this guy was letting get it published, you probably heard it was all over the news in July of 2020 that the Antarctic was warming.
Mhm.
And these
Correct.
6 scientists wrote this manuscript. The title said that, the abstract said that, but the manuscript itself said that it was a 20-year cycle. It started in year 2000 and it's cooling now. That's the kind of garbage he was letting get published, because I'm chief editor and board member of 3 journals. And when I get a manuscript to check, the first thing I have to check is if the abstract and the manuscript and the title match. If they don't match, it's rejected. And that's how,
Right.
those reports were just, those manuscripts were just garbage. So their reports, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports, are deliberate science fiction. And you can see that on cctruth.org on the college textbook page. It's called Climate Crisis Changed. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports are deliberate science fiction. And I put the ipcc.pdf there. Anybody can download it and look at it. It's easy to read. It explains a lot more than what I just said. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so back to greenhouse gases then. The warming we have is astrophysical. It's not global. They started this thing. Um, this whole thing about climate change and global warming was started in the 80s by the UN, because some scientists showed them that we would be out of food by the 2040. And they knew that there
Correct,
was
yes.
a shift in the tilt of the earth in the 70s that would cause mostly warming in the north, where 90% of the people live. And so they called it global warming, and as an experiment to control people. And that is in the UN documents. I've seen it. So this whole thing is just an
Okay.
experiment to control people. And when I found that out, we worked with Dr. Jay Larimore of NOAA, who's in charge of all the temperature stations worldwide. We wrote a script that goes out and gets the temperature data once a month. And on the data page of cctruth.org, you can click on the script is there. We're not hiding anything. If anybody wants to download that script and run it on a Unix server, they'll get the same data. And the script was verified by Dr. Jay Larimore. And so the data is true. It's been running now for 4 years. And I get the graph every January. I update the graph. So the graph is updated on there right now. And it shows warming in the north, where 90% of the people live, and cooling in the south. So the southern hemisphere is cooling, the northern hemisphere is warming. And it's caused by a shift of the tilt of the earth in the 70s. And then there was another one in around 2003. And when I first got into this and looked at this manuscript, it was another garbage one by the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in San Diego. And these guys said that they swapped cause and effect. They said that the melting of the Greenland glacier was causing a shift in the tilt of the earth in 2003, and they showed the data of the shift of the tilt of the earth. But actually, it's the other way around. The shift in the tilt of the earth is causing the warming in the north, which was melting the Greenland glacier.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the other things I present at climate change conferences is global sea rise. Global sea rise is 1.4 millimeters linear and not accelerating. The graph that you've seen before is 2 different systems. So they have the tide gauges coming along flat like this, and then the satellite is like this. So it looks like it's a continuous graph and it's accelerating. But if you look at the legend of the graph, which nobody looks at it evidently, they see there's two different systems. So the satellite, the Jason 3 satellite, has a minimum resolution of 25 millimeters. And they say they're measuring a 3.3 millimeter rise per year, which is physically impossible. But the tide gauges are all over the world, and they show 1.4 millimeters linear and not accelerating. And that's also, I put the graph there on the college textbook page so anybody can see what worldwide tide gauges. Some of them are decreasing in sea level rise, not increasing.
when you say they want to control people, talking about global warming, uh, what is this control going to lead to? How is it going to help these panelists?
Well, how is this to help? It's to tell the people that they've been lied to. They've been, the media, they open their mouth, they lie. The media knows everything I just told you, and everything that's in that college textbook. And we'll see, because in May it'll be published by Durant's Publishing, which is the oldest book publishing company in the United States. They're 100 years old, and they will write a press release. It's going to be on Amazon and on Barnes and Noble. But right now, and the price for the digital download we fixed will be $89.95, and then the hardback will be $149.95. But right now on cctruth.org, you can download it for $39.95. So I'll do that until they tell me I have to stop. I don't know when that'll be, but it'll get
So,
published. And then I was already interviewed by three college students who wrote book reports for their environmental science teachers who want to teach it next fall. So it's starting to be accepted worldwide in environmental science.
okay. Right. So, when you say that global warming is something that is, it's a hype that is created to control the world, whatever steps they are talking about, reducing pollution, planting more trees, or basically trying to mitigate this entire situation, nothing wrong with what they are saying, isn't it?
Well, pollution is different. There's this climate change and global warming garbage, but pollution is a big deal, and there's ways to stop pollution. China, India, and others should put exhaust scrubbers on their industrial plants and and get the lead out of the gasoline, and do catalytic converters and things like this. As a chemical engineer, you look at ways to mitigate pollution or mitigate anything, and there is ways. That's how the United States and Europe have. Well, the United States has a 16% drop in carbon dioxide since 2006, and Europe has a 21% since 1990. And we don't have hardly any pollution in the United States or in Europe because of these principles. They put exhaust scrubbers on their power plants and exhaust scrubbers on their industrial plants and chemical plants and things like that. So there's ways to mitigate everything.
Right. So what you're saying is that the climate change hype that is created because of the greenhouse gases, that is a separate topic from the pollution. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Uh,
Okay. All
the
right.
two are not, they are mutually exclusive. You can't
Okay.
say that, carbon dioxide or methane is pollution or things like that. They're not pollution. They may be
Okay.
caused or in sync with some other kind of pollution, but like carbon black or some kind of smokestack from an industrial power plant. But you can put an exhaust scrubber on that power plant and then mitigate all of the pollution from it. You'll still have the gases coming off
And
of it, but they'll be clean.
right. And that is not leading to the greenhouse gases and global warming.
Yeah, yeah. And well, back on greenhouse gases, so methane is a much less effect. If you want to talk about the effect of greenhouse gases, methane is only 0.03% effect. Carbon dioxide is 10%. So methane is much less. The global warming potential model of the IPCC is garbage. and it assumes equal greenhouse gases, which will never happen in reality. Carbon dioxide is 200 times more concentrated in the atmosphere than methane is. So the effect of
Mm-hmm.
methane is much less, not more, the way they say. But I do want to tell your viewers about a good movie about climate change on Netflix or YouTube called Kiss the Ground. And it explains how we plant trees, we stop non sustainable deforestation, atmospheric carbon dioxide comes down very quickly. And it also talks about why, the cows are where they're at, where the cows need to be, talks about a lot of solutions and gives a lot of hope to those who want to believe still in global warming or climate change. It gives a lot
Mm-hmm.
of hope for them.
Okay.
And it's also on
It's,
YouTube.
it's called Kiss the Ground.
Kiss the Ground,
Okay, all right now. All right, so that'll be on my to watch list. Apart from that, tell me about when you talk about afforestation, you say that planting trees is a solution to all the climate change crisis that we have right now.
Yes. Um, if you look at globalforestwatch.com or .org, I'm not sure what it is, and look at the map, you can see why carbon dioxide is increasing. We have massive non-sustainable deforestation throughout the world. And I've already stopped the Indian rainforest from destruction, and Peru has stopped deforestation also because of us. And there's a call to action on the homepage and a link to there's a thing to tweet to the leaders of South America to have them stop deforestation because Peru did. If we get Brazil to stop, in 3 years, the
Mm.
decay will finish and the Amazon will switch back to an oxygen producer and a carbon dioxide sink. In 1992, it switched to a
Oh,
carbon dioxide producer or and an oxygen sink because of massive decay from all the burning of the
okay.
rainforest of deforestation. And the good news is that it will switch back in 3 years, and we get back
3 years
over
is a
a
very
hundred
short,
billion
yeah,
tons,
3.
over 100 billion tons of photosynthesis per year, which is 2.5 times our emissions.
That sounds very, very positive.
Yeah, yeah. We also get back 20% of our oxygen production because right
Wonderful.
now,
So,
worldwide, the oxygen you're breathing used to be the level about 1,000 feet above you. It
mhm.
happened very slowly. You can go to, I think it's oxygenlevels.org and see the decrease in oxygen. And but planting these trees and stopping what's going on in the Amazon will reverse that.
All right. Let's take a break to understand what CHEZUBA is. Everyone at some point ponders on how this beautiful life can be made more meaningful. Maybe you're a leader trying to enhance your employees' experience at your organization. Or you already work for the community and seek volunteers with state of the art skills to strengthen your nonprofit. Whatever your situation, know that you can make a difference. CHEZUBA began with this very vision, a vision to facilitate every skill and every passion in the world in meeting a social need. Corporate volunteering has several benefits for both businesses and organizations. In parallel, experienced and enthusiastic volunteers join NGO workers, enabling them to serve the community more effectively. CHEZUBA offers everyone looking to add purpose and meaning to their lives a chance to connect or volunteer virtually with nonprofit organizations from over 100 countries around the world. Visit www.chezuba.net and explore opportunities to find meaning. CHEZUBA, your platform to do good. And now, back with our guest. Let's talk about your nonprofit. Of course, you are enlightening people about this issue. You are also trying to, persuade governments to stop deforestation. How do you go about this? Of course, you have your team. Is that enough, or do you still need people to collect and understand what you are trying to say and promote your views otherwise? And how do you get funded for this?
Well, we don't, unfortunately, ourselves and thousands of other scientists who tell the truth about climate change, we don't get any funding, so we need funding. We need, I need $3,000 to publish this college textbook. I need another few $1,000s for other things. And that's all. But what I want is everyone to go to cctruth.org and look at the call to action, because if everyone in the world plants 3 native shrubs and trees per year, CO2 will drop to 330 parts per million by 2031. And also follow and tweet that link to the leaders of the Amazon, because there's about 2,000 people tweeting that at least once a week. And that's why Peru stopped deforestation. When Peru stopped deforestation 2 years ago, the next month we had flat carbon dioxide in January for the first time in 70 years because of that. When normally in January, the carbon dioxide increases by 1.5 parts per million per month. So it's
That
a
is
big
amazing.
deal. Yeah,
It is
it's
a
a
big
big deal.
deal. Yeah, it is a big deal. And it's a fairly simple solution as far as I see it. Planting three
Hmm.
trees in a year per person is not such a difficult task.
Right.
Uh, I wonder why this idea is not getting promoted more.
Um, well, I think the media won't say anything about it because they know the residence time of CO2 is 150 years. So you want to buy an electric
Mhm.
car, do solar panels, windmills, none of that will have any effect for 150 years. They know this. They want people to just go along and do this and find out in 2030 or 2035 that CO2 is still going up and then riot. And then they'll get extra advertising from the rioting. I think I think that's the only thing I can figure out is why the media won't tell everybody the simple, quick solution for this problem.
All right, let's take it that's what they want. Talking about fossil fuels, is this something that uh, is of course it's a limited proportion. Do we look at fossil fuels as the culprit?
Could you say it again? Do we look at fossil fuels as what?
As a culprit for creating more greenhouse gases, for creating
Well,
carbon
that's what the
dioxide?
media says, and that's what these kids are getting taught in school, and that's what the UN thinks because they're being lied to by the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change. But fossil fuels emissions aren't the problem. We've worked on emissions of CO2, as I said, a 16% drop in the US and 21% drop in Europe. And emissions of other greenhouse gases have decreased, but it hasn't helped at all. They've done nothing and no effect of anything. They just tell these people we have to quit, and if you think about it, you put solar panels and windmills everywhere, you get rid of your fossil fuel burning um, coal fire power plants and things like that, you'll have less electricity, and then they want everybody to buy an electric car. It'll crash the grid, and it's already starting to happen. 11% of electric vehicles will crash the grid right now. And I put a link
Oh
on the
wow.
homepage of cctruth.org that explains how California, the last 2 summers, told their EV drivers they couldn't charge their cars because they needed the extra power for air conditioning in the summer. Because an
Right.
EV takes a huge amount of power to charge it over 3 or 4 hours. And you get
Mm-hmm.
that many people. Plus, the other thing is the EVs, in 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years, you're going to have to replace your batteries. And there's only a certain
Yes,
amount of lithium in the world to make these batteries. So it's
correct.
going to have to be reclaimed. There isn't the infrastructure or anything to be able to do EVs at this time. I'm not saying EVs are a bad idea, because certainly they're a lot simpler than a conventional car. You have a lot less moving parts, and so there's a lot less failure. But until we have a better way to generate electricity, like nuclear, the newer nuclear is only 18% as much waste as the previous nuclear. So, and also there's
Okay.
nuclear power that you can put in a neighborhood. It's small, like about the size of a car setup that then you can put in a neighborhood. Oregon State University is developing this, and they've already proved it, that you could put one of these in every neighborhood and it would power the whole neighborhood. And nuclear doesn't produce
Oh, that's
any
wonderful.
greenhouse gases or anything. And, in terms of getting rid of the radiated material, could contract with SpaceX, get some PhD civil engineers or mechanical engineers to make a round or octagon shaped pod to put the waste material in and shoot it to the sun. And if that was made so that even if the rocket blew up on launch or blew up going up into the atmosphere, that pod would drop back down and would not break. And there's ways to calculate those kinds of stresses and everything that those PhDs would know how to do. I knew how to do it, but that was 30 years ago when I was in college. But I'm gonna I'm only 22 credits from a PhD, and I applied at Oregon State University to finish my PhD, and I should find out in a couple weeks if I'll be going back next fall and teaching the college textbook in environmental engineering.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sure your classes would be very interesting.
Yeah.
I wish I would be able to attend them.
Well, maybe some university where you're at will be teaching it.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, let's hope
All
so.
right.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. Yes. Thank you, Professor Dave. It was wonderful talking to you. And I would say to all the audience watching this, planting 3 trees in a year per person is not a difficult task. Whatever your views are, I think this takeaway from this episode is definitely doable. Professor White, it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you for being on our podcast.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.